Welcome to 5 a.m. Tuesday, where we unlock the power of choice to shape and transform your life one Tuesday at a time. Welcome, listeners. So we are in for an exciting treat today because I am joined by Mel Sherwood. Now, Mel specializes in confident communication and personal impact for business leaders and teams. And she has written her first book, which is, I've got here, very exciting, is the Authority Guide to Pitching Your Business. And it's about how to make an impact and be remembered in under a minute. And that's the catchphrase, isn't it? In under a minute. So welcome, Mel. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I was listening to having listened to your other guests, and you've had some amazing guests. So I'm kind of humbled and honored to be one. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, that humility is beautiful because I haven't even told listeners yet that this was a UK Business Book of the Year finalist, which is a real feat. And I've written a book, so I know how big that is. And that you're currently working on your second book, which is based a bit around what attracted me to get you on here today, which is this red effect framework. And what I love your lovely background of actually being an Australian who now lives in Scotland, which must be so different. But the great thing, listeners, is that opens up Mel to truly work globally. And so she does work with clients globally. She combines 25 years of experience in business with a background. Now, this is going to get really fun and interesting. So Mel has been an actor and it shows. I've spent some time in your company. You're just such a beautiful human, an actor, a presenter, a singer. And I have heard your voice. It's beautiful. And so you really combine all of that experience to help leaders and teams to maximize their influence and impact, which is something that people can really struggle with. So, it's a delight to have you on here today. And I would love to just kick straight into it and find out what led you to helping leaders with this confident communication and personal impact. I know I've needed it over the years. So tell me what led you into that work.
Well, you mentioned my performing background, and then that alongside my performing background, I worked in Australia in a big retailer in their head office and did kind of communication and marketing type roles. And then when I came to Scotland, I ended up working in HR and fell into learning and development, which I really loved. It sort of combined everything that I'd done in my background, and the performing element helped, being in front of audiences and delivering training and coaching. And so, and I sort of did some study around that and around learning and development practices and that sort of thing, and NLP coaching and that. And so then, whilst I loved it, I got to a point when I didn't anymore. I like to change and move on. So I'd always wanted my own business, and I came up with an idea for an online platform for the performing arts industry. And I thought it was such a good idea. I pitched it to a startup accelerator program, and they said, we're not sure about that idea, but we like you, we like your enthusiasm, we like your commitment. Come on the program and prove to us that it is it's a feasible idea. So I went, great. I quit my job and I left on a Friday and I started in the Startup Accelerator on the Monday.
Wow.
That's this lovely, secure job and went into the world of entrepreneurship. And then I decided to test the idea, and I left everything before I decided to test this idea. And everyone I spoke to thought it absolutely was a great idea. What I realized, though, was that had a major flaw and no one was prepared to pay for it. So suddenly I didn't really have a good business idea at all. But what I realized along that process is, because of my performing background, and I'd won some public speaking competitions along the way and that sort of thing, and I discovered a superpower of being able to simplify information into a short answer, basically, to the question, what do you do? And there was a lot of focus on pitching in this startup accelerator. So I was winning pitching competitions, and people started asking me to help them with their pitches. And so I worked, and it kind of grew from there. And I started working with government organizations that support startups and that sort of thing. And so and then it just expanded, and people, I don't know how, I've never been great at marketing, to be honest. So but people kept finding me. And then I was working with leaders of startups, and then leaders of scale ups, and then working with SMEs, and now working, a bit more globally with larger companies as well. And what I found, I just think it's such a shame that people, when they can't explain what they do, or they're not great communicators necessarily, they might be great at what they do, but they're not good at communicating that. And I think it's such a shame. People are losing opportunities, losing credibility, losing money.
Yeah.
And so it happens where, you look at people in the corporate world or any role, and they get pushed into the role or promoted to a role or something, and suddenly they find themselves delivering presentations, reporting to the board, or inspiring their team, or whatever it might be, and they've never had any training in that. And it's interesting because we don't come out of the womb being great at public speaking, but people feel like they should be. Yeah. And I think it's a real shame. And most of my clients who come to me for one-to-one support, they've all got that experience of something happening, when they're at school doing show and tell or something, and the kids laughed, and they've never been, they've been fearful of it ever since. So I'm really, really, I think because of my background too, I'm really fascinated and interested in how we use our bodies and our voices and our minds and our hearts to really connect with people. And I think, people get stuck on, oh, what am I going to say? They forget about how they're going to say it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, long story about how I got to where I am.
Oh, look, I love hearing those stories though, of how everything lined up and you were giving that opportunity. And I was thinking near the end of where you were talking there, how I won a speech competition at school when I was 13, but I'm still that person who can struggle to put a pitch together that is really compelling and succinct and makes sense. And, you talk about a presentation to the board, absolutely. Even a human resources manager having to deliver to leaders that they're going through some change, or a one person that their role is being made redundant, or some difficult feedback. But what I wrote down as you were talking there, and I think many of us fall into this, is your words, they feel like they should be good at it. And we are all, even when we're told not to compare ourselves to others, it's a natural human trait. And we do fall into that trap. I mean, I've been in business for 6 years, and I'm already sitting here listening to you and going, oh, Mel, okay, we need to have a one-on-one discussion. I didn't realize how much. And I've been doing this for years. So just to give listeners confidence, you're not alone. You're exactly not alone. And I think we've kind of covered some of the common challenges that leaders face with presentations, but how do you actually help them tackle them? If we get a little bit more into your process, without giving it all away, of course.
So I think, obviously the key things that people are challenged with is around the nerves and that sort of thing, managing how they come across. One of the big challenges as well is that people seem to think it's all about them. They forget that when you're delivering a presentation, it's always got to be about the audience. And so if you can, I've got a process where I talk about, it uses the acronym RED because I use that a lot in a lot of my work, but it's about research, express, and deliver. And the research is really understanding your audience, making sure you know who they are, what they care about, all of that sort of thing. And other parts of the research that help you be more prepared. So where is it, how many people will be there? What's the equipment going to be? What's the environment like? How is it set up? All of that. But the research being, get clear on your audience, and then get clear on your objective. So what do you want your audience to think, feel, or do at the end of your presentation, or your end of your communication, if it's in a conversation, for example? And then once you're clear on that, it makes it so much easier to know what to put into your presentation and what to leave out. So it just makes it super clear. And so that's the key, that's the start of the process, the RED process. Then how do you express that message? And so obviously it's about the structure and what words and stories and examples and case studies will you put in to really bring that to life. And when you've got a good structure with a really powerful opening and a really powerful closing, and you've signposted, you help people, follow the journey with you, you can create that narrative, then you are, in a much better position, obviously. And then the final part of that is deliver. So obviously delivering with confidence, credibility, charisma. You want to make it really compelling. So and that goes back to that passion I have around your body and your voice and all of that, really supporting how the words are delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love the word you use, signposted. So that whole signposting through the narrative. And you've wrapped it into this red effect, the research, the express, the deliver, which is really easy to remember. Now, for those of you watching on YouTube, you will actually see that Mel is all about the red effect. And it really did impress me. I spent how long did we spend together? 4 days in a amazing business retreat on Santorini. So Mel was there with me, and every day Mel had a beautiful red lipstick on. But even looking at your background and the pops of red, you live and breathe this message. And, when we wrap around a beautiful acronym like that makes absolute sense. It's as much when you're talking about the expressing part, I'm thinking about how you are presenting yourself here this morning with your professional red, your image. It can really give you that layer of confidence, right?
Definitely. And I think lipstick's always been my go-to in terms of boosting my confidence. I wear it when I feel good. I wear it when I want to feel good. Because I've been performing since I was a child, I've been wearing like red lipstick, when it's showtime. And so there's something about it's like an anchor for me. It's the act of putting on that red lipstick. It's getting me into the best version of myself. And so, yeah, and it's sort of expanded from that. I never used to wear a lot of red, but when the business kind of went down that track and I developed the red effect, people kind of expect it now. So if I turn up to an event or something and I'm not wearing red, people are surprised. But I do have other colors. I think the other thing to say about the red effect, red is, people are like, what if I don't like the color red? It's like, it doesn't matter. Red's an attitude. So it doesn't matter about the color red, but it's about how you feel and the choices you make. That's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that leads me great into the topic of decision making, given that, we're here on 5 a.m. Tuesday. How can the red effect help leaders make better choices? And maybe you've got a story or two that you can share with us to show that impact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. The way the red effect came about was because I was having a little moment where I'd lost my confidence, lost my mojo, really, and I wasn't enthused about anything. I'd lost my passion and I couldn't understand why. And the short story of how it came about is I was talking to a friend about it, and he said, look, Mel, I think the answer is really simple. Everyone associates the color red with you. It's vibrant and energetic and positive. So I think you should just put on your red lipstick and go for a ride in your new red car. Just stop being blue and be more red. And course, no, like he wouldn't have said that if he knew I was like properly depressed or anything. You don't just say stop being blue. But that phrase was the perfect thing, because within 24 hours of hanging up from that phone call, the words be more red, that was just over and over in my mind. And I bought the domain name bemorered.com and I'd started writing a book. And I started to question, what does red mean? And for me, it's about being authentic. It's being fully me. It's about expressing myself and being confident. It's a whole lot of things, but red's something different to everyone. So then I came up with the idea of red being an acronym. Yeah. And so we can choose. So this is going back to the choosing. I think, we have that opportunity to choose any moment how we approach things, how we respond to things. So it's about choosing what I call a shade of red. So an R word, an E word, and a D word. For example, in one situation, I might want to be radiant, enchanting, and dazzling. Maybe in a different situation, I might want to be more responsive, empathetic, and diplomatic. So it's about being mindful of, what that, what's coming up for you. So each day, for example, I say, what's on today? What shade of red do I need to apply to turn up as my best? when it comes to decision making, the whole red effect program that I originally designed is around another shade of red, but it's reflect, explore, and decide. So there's a lot of kind of, personal development and getting to know yourself in that reflection. How did I get to be here and that sort of thing. But if you think about, so I've got a red effect decision making guide or a tool, and so it's reflect. So why do I have to make the decision? Who will be impacted on this decision? How will this decision contribute to my, to the overall success? Then there's a few other questions involved, but then exploring is about what options are available, how do they compare, and then decide. So actually, what is the best course of action? Who needs to know, and how will it be implemented? And with the other questions that are in the guide, there's your obvious kind of questions, I suppose, when you're starting to make a decision. But then I put sort of a question at the end of the reflect, end of explore, and end of decide. So for reflect, just to add a little twist, I suppose, do I already know what the decision should be? Because often this goes back to your intuition. Yeah. The next, under the explore, the final question is, what happens if I do nothing? And then finally, with the decide, what's the worst that could happen if I made the wrong decision? And so just to actually having those extra little questions to help you. And what people find is that this framework, it makes it really consistent with their decision making if they kind of go through that process each time. And then, having that available is really, it's a nice, simple approach, really. But I think for me, I do a lot of reflecting, exploring, and not enough deciding sometimes, to be fair. But actually, it does help me. Using that process gets me to make a decision. So we were just talking about decision that I'm in the process of making at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do throughout life. There are decisions daily, hourly, monthly. There's always something. And I actually love that question. What happens if I do nothing? Because if it's something that is truly important to you, that question could invoke some real feeling around it. So I would challenge listeners to decide what their acronym is for RED today. So I've written one down for me, Mel. Do you want to hear it?
Great. I'd love to hear it.
So, and I've done this off the top of my head now. I wrote, for R, I wrote real. So I'm all about being real, being the true you. And for the E, I wrote engaging. Empathetic kept coming into my mind, but it's like, no, that's not it. So engaging. And D, I wrote daring.
Oh, it's really interesting that you say that, because I chose a shade of red for myself in 2020. We were in lockdown and all of that, and we had lots of time to think, reflect, explore, and decide, right? So often people will have a word of the year as a focus for their year. I had a shade of red for the year, and my shade of red for that year was real, expressed, and daring. And so the real part was really about being true to myself, making sure that, I was really authentic in my approach to things, and just, and keeping it real. And then the express part was really making sure that I didn't leave anything unsaid, but also it was really around expressing myself creatively. And that's when I wrote a couple of the songs and that sort of thing, which I'd never done before. And I think maybe the lockdown helped us, access parts of us that we maybe didn't in the past. And then daring was about stepping outside of my comfort zone and just pushing myself a little bit to, I joined a dating site, online dating. I'd never done that before. So that was out of my comfort zone. But actually, even writing a song and then recording it, and that was really daring for me. That was really uncomfortable, because despite me being a singer, I've had a lot of angst around singing over my lifetime. So I love that shade of red. And your shade of red, real, what was the middle one?
Real, engaging, and daring.
Engaging and daring. And you said empathetic. And I think that's who you are at your core. Yeah. You are empathetic. So sometimes it's about recognizing, okay, this is who I am. This is the essence of me. And then here's a shade of red I'd like to apply. It's like I have aspirational shades of red, as well as shades of red that really communicate who I am, if that makes sense. So I sometimes choose the word decisive, because sometimes I can be not so decisive. And so that's my aspirational shade.
Oh, look, it covers all angles of setting up your day. You know, I always talk
Yeah.
to my clients about setting up their day, and this idea of choosing your shade of red for today, it really sticks in your mind. And I could see, you know, and I'm sure this happens when you're working with a team in an organization, they can all easily, because this is so easy to remember, hold each other and themselves accountable, going, what's your shade of red today?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it can just become a really fun thing that ripples
It is
throughout
actually,
the
yeah. Even
organization.
when somebody said something and someone says, "Well, that was revealing," and so you start to become aware, you can start to become aware of which words start with R, E, and D. So I've got like a printout of a shades of red, literally sort of that I have and
Yeah.
on my desk, and I can literally go, okay, what shade of red? And it doesn't matter. Sometimes when I'm working with clients and we're doing an exercise and they're looking at a shade of red, and sometimes if, for example, I've worked with some people for whom English is not their first language. So when they look at the list, they're like, oh, I don't know what that means. So actually, then I just use they can choose any word they want, really, because it's about choice. It doesn't have to fit into this, but then you be really something, exceptionally something else, and definitely something else. So you still get the RED, but you can add your own words if you can't find one that quite fits. But it's really fun, and it's super easy to get reflected. A lot of people don't spend time reflecting or thinking or making those choices, actually being conscious about the choices. And as soon as you have to really distill it down to an actual word, it's like, and you were saying, the empathetic word came to you, but no, that wasn't the one that you wanted. And so engage, which you are, but actually, if being mindful of, I want to be engaging in this instant. And obviously, as a speaker and trainer and coach and whatever, we want to be engaging. So that's a word that one comes into my shade of red quite often.
Oh, look, and I know people will be wanting to know how to get hold of you, so I'm going to put those contact details into the show notes. But a lot of my clients listen to this podcast, so it's like those of you who are listening, I would love you to message me with your red shade of red for today.
Yep.
I think
I would love to know that.
you've given us something that is easy to grasp, easy to use, easy to remember, which is all what we want to do when we are making a presentation, right? Or
Yeah,
doing
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
pitch. So if you do have to make a pitch, if you want help with your communication, as I said, Mel works globally. So it doesn't matter where you're based listening to this, you can reach her and, have a chat about how she can work with you. Any final words of wisdom, Mel, before we wind it down?
Final words of wisdom. I would suggest making sure that you choose a shade of red before every moment of importance. So don't just rock up to a meeting without choosing a shade of red.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for generously joining me today. It is actually, I think, about 6:30 by now PM in Scotland. So you didn't have to do the 5 a.m. I'm doing that one. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to using this in my day to day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.